Hi, I'm Rick Anthony, and welcome to the Someone You Should Know podcast, the podcast that focuses on musicians, authors, and interesting people. We like to say we're making a difference one artist at a time. So sit back, have a cold one, and get ready to meet someone you should know. Today's guest on the Someone You Should Know podcast is a friend of the family who graduated with my wife, Leslie, from Hobart High School. And when he's not saving smiles as an endodontist, he's composing music and performing them. Will you please welcome all the way from Nashville, Tennessee, my buddy, Jim Blaney. Jim, welcome aboard, buddy.
Hey, thanks, Rick. I'm glad to be here.
Like I said earlier, graduated with my wife, Leslie, and during the pandemic of 2020, he would routinely perform during a songwriter showcase in Nashville that was aired on Facebook Live. And Leslie and I absolutely look forward to seeing you every Wednesday. It was kind of like, where's he going to be in the lineup tonight? And thank you so much for basically allowing us to be a part of that whole process. And a shout out to Dee's Lounge for putting that out. Jim, I wanted to ask you, what was your takeaway from performing all those pandemic shows?
Oh, it was great. Because first off, I had just started performing again in late 2019, early 2020, and everything got shut down by the pandemic. And I thought, oh man, finally, after all these years, I'm starting back doing this, and now it's all shut down. And then when Dee's decided that they were going to start broadcasting those shows and invited me to participate in it, I was really thankful and really grateful to them because it gave me the chance to keep performing. And even though it wasn't in front of a live audience at Dee's, I knew there were people watching, and we were all so grateful for everybody who tuned into Facebook. So it was just a really great experience.
And I imagine you developed a camaraderie between the other performers and songwriters?
We did, and they had a really unique way of doing it. They have a fairly big front porch at Dee's, and so the only people allowed in Dee's were the sound guy, the person performing, and the person next up. And the rest of us had to wait, outside on the front porch. So we spent a lot of time talking, and then it was our turn to go in. We'd go in, and you could tune up in the back, and then it was your turn to perform. So it was kind of the same cast of people there for the weeks that they did it. So it was a really nice experience.
Wonderful, wonderful. In your notes, you wrote that music's been your driving factor in life as long as you can remember. Your grandmother and aunt were organists in the church, and then in your formative years of 3, 4, and 5, your dad would take you to go record shopping after getting a haircut in downtown Gary, and he would buy you the #1 single of the week, and that was pre-Beatles. How did this mold the music that you perform today, Jim?
Well, I guess it just kind of gave me an appreciation. I've got a real wide range of influences now because some of those early singles, like, for example, I have a Chubby Checker single, Let's Twist Again.
Uh-huh.
I have
62, I believe.
62. And I have the original single of Joey D and the Starlighters doing the Peppermint Twist.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of those guys ended up becoming the Young Rascals later on. So, just a lot of that R&B, kind of New York recording studios type stuff was my early influence. And then, of course, we all watched the Beatles when they were on Ed Sullivan. And I went out, and this was back when grocery stores sold albums, but I remember real vividly going with my mom the Monday after the first Beatles appearance on Ed Sullivan, and we went to a little grocery store in Maryville, Indiana, where we lived at the time, and I bought Meet the Beatles, and I still have that album, too.
Wow. Now, going back to downtown Gary, you went to the Gary Bank building to get your haircut. Was it Comay's where you got the records? Do you remember that by chance? Because my aunt used to work at Comay's. It was a Comay's Jewelers that also sold records.
Could have been, because my dad would always take me in, and he'd say, what's #1 on the charts this week? And if we didn't have that record, he would buy it for me. And then I'd have to go home and beg my uncle who lived with us, who was in high school at the time, can I put this on your record player and listen to it? And he would always say, yeah. So that was, it could have been Comay's. I don't specifically remember, but it was real close to the bank building.
Because I remember shopping there also as far as when I was a kid. I remember one of the first songs I ever got was Rubber Ducky by Ernie. and Boy Named Sue by Johnny Cash. Those were some of the first ones I remember getting. All right. Now, after high school, you went to college, but your music had to wait as you focused on your studies, but you did play in a Blues Brothers tribute band at the frat house. What do you remember from those days?
Oh, man, those were a blast. We played every Thursday night. Our fraternity house would have a keg party, and we'd invite a sorority. And, for a long time we had DJs. It was kind of the disco era, late 70s, early 80s. But then somebody said, once a month, we should put together a live band and do a Blues Brothers tribute. And so, because the Blues Brothers movie was out at the time, the record was popular. So we learned songs off that record, and once a month we would do a Blues Brothers performance, play about an hour, and it was great. I had a lot of fun. Everybody had a good time, and it was just kind of like being in an outdoor party and playing live.
All right, then that album does still stand the test of time. Leslie and I watched the movie just a couple of weeks ago, and she caught the Katy, and great songs. Sweet Home Chicago, still one of my favorites. Yeah, great stuff there from that album. Really top-rate musicians on that album. That was a real classic album. All right, very good. Now, we're going to go ahead and feature one of your songs here. This one came out in December. It's called Life Lessons, and I remember you featuring that on the Songwriter Showcase. Can you give us the backstory on this one, Jim?
Yeah, actually, that was really influenced a lot by Neil Young. Neil, especially early Neil Young, is one of my big influences. And I was listening to Old Man and just kind of a looking at life type thing. And when Neil wrote Old Man, he was a young man talking to an old man, and now I'm an older man, so I'm kind of maybe talking to a younger crowd.
And we're going to feature that song right now on the Someone You Should Know podcast. Life Lessons from Jim Blaney.
Brush your teeth, comb your hair, take the raincoat from under the stairs. Looks like another stormy day. Pay attention, study hard. You gotta work to make your mark. Life's not an easy game to play. You're on your own and you catch a smile from the corner of your eye. And you go from 1 to 2, hand searching in the dark. You find a hook but you lose your heart, and you still don't have a clue. Life lessons, rain or shine, cold and hard or warm and kind, shades of gray or black and white. Some stick, some stay, some slowly fade away, just like a whisper in the night. Life lessons. Raise a family, raise yourself. Raise a glass to your health. Every trip around the sun. Cut the cake, take a bite. It's your party, be the life. Take the time to have some fun. Life lessons, rain or shine, cold and hard or warm and kind, shades of gray or black and white. Some stick, some stay, some slowly fade away, just like a whisper in the night. Life lessons. Hold your tongue, speak your mind in your own space and time. Don't back down and don't back out. It's a long, slow burn. Do we ever really learn what the journey's all about? Life lessons, rain or shine, cold and hard or warm and kind, shades of gray or black and white. Some stick, some stay, some slowly fade away, just like a whisper in the night. Life lessons, life lessons.
Great music from my buddy Jim Blaney. That is Life Lessons on the Someone You Should Know podcast. Now, Jim, after college, you joined the Navy. Thank you for your service. You know, I did Air Force, you did Navy and such. First question I got to ask you: what ship were you on?
I was not on a ship.
Oh,
I joined the Navy out of dental school because, as you remember, the Northwest Indiana took a big economic hit in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, the steel mills, yeah.
And I kind of needed some place to go, and the Navy was recruiting. So when I got out of the Navy, they sent me to Gulfport, Mississippi, and I took care of the Seabees. I was at the Naval Seabee Center in Gulfport, Mississippi, and I spent 3 years there.
I know that well because I did some training at Keesler, which is right over there, right there in Biloxi. Absolutely.
Yep.
And that place
right down the street.
That place is fun during the Mardi Gras now, ain't it?
It is. It's fun during Mardi Gras, about an hour from New Orleans. Man, that's a great place to be.
Absolutely. Now, after you graduate, or when you graduated dental school, you received your first paycheck as a Navy dentist. And what did you do with that very first paycheck, Jim?
I went to Mississippi Music, and I bought a used Les Paul Custom. It was a 1981 black Les Paul Custom. I had dreamed of a Les Paul ever since I saw Jimmy Page play one with Led Zeppelin. Never could afford one, but I made a down payment on it and then paid it off over the next several months.
Awesome. Very cool. I love those kind of stories. You know, when your dream actually comes true, you actually got Excalibur, right?
Yeah, that was Excalibur for me, man. I'll tell you.
Did you play Stairway?
They wouldn't let me play Stairway in the store. They had a sign that said no Stairway to Heaven or no Sweet Home Alabama, so I had to wait till I got home. But yeah, I did. And so it was a great. I was so happy to get that guitar. I just loved that guitar.
No Stairway, denied.
No Stairway, they denied me. That's right.
One feature that we love to include on the podcast is kind of a feature within a feature. It is something we love to do when we have musicians. It's called Tales from the Road. And, Jim, those are those infamous road stories of getting to a gig, from a gig, something that happened on stage at a gig, backstage at a gig, hotel accommodations or something like that. Can you think of one that comes to mind?
I can. About a year ago, I had booked an early show at a place at that time it was called Puckett's Grocery down in Leapers Fork, Tennessee. It's called Fox and Lock now, but I really, really wanted to play that place. And so I was able to secure a gig. I was going to be the early guy. I was going to come on at 7, play from about 7 to 7:30. And so they said, make sure you're here in plenty of time. Make sure you're here at 6:30 because we've got a paying audience that expects music. So it's not like a little casual gig. You got to be there. And so I decided to schedule myself off work at 3 in the afternoon because it was like a 30-mile drive down I-65. And I thought, that's plenty of time, 3.5 hours. That's plenty of time. Well, little did I know that there had been an incident on I-65 between my office and Leapers Fork where they shut down I-65 both directions for several hours. And so I get on I-65, and as I'm leaving my office and heading into Nashville, I work north of town, all of a sudden I'm noticing traffic's crawling, and I'm not even anywhere close to being even downtown Nashville, let alone south of town where, I've got to get to. So I found out there was an accident. So I get rerouted, and I get rerouted through all these little neighborhoods because there's no real good artery to bypass I-65 and get to where I needed to go. So long story short, everybody's getting rerouted. I roll into that place at 6:30. It was a 3.5-hour drive. And I'm like, man, if I don't make it there on time, I'll never get booked there again. But I rolled in there just at the last minute, was able to set up, was able to play. But boy, it was I would think I was covered with sweat sitting in the car. Just, I'd go through a little town and there'd be like a little neighborhood stoplight. And, normally there's 5 cars at the stoplight. Well, now there's a line of like 50. So I would have to go like through several cycles of the stoplight before I could even go through. So I was like, I felt like my blood pressure was going to explode before I ever made it there.
Wow. Yeah. The show must go on. That's the thing, though, for sure. And there was some due diligence there trying to find your way to make sure that the show went on. I really love that kind of tenacity. Nice going there, Jim.
Yeah. Thank you, Waze.
Upcoming gigs and dates that we should know about, my friend?
Right now, I've only got one. I've been recording here, but I'm going to be playing at Bad Axe Nashville on February 8th. I think it's at 7 o'clock. Great place. It's an axe throwing place, so there's there's axe throwing, alcohol, and music. So it's kind of got a little bit of everything you want. Axe throwing, alcohol, and music. Axe throwing and alcohol. Those two don't seem like they go together well, but yeah, you can keep your head on a swivel while you're there. But it's a great place. It's a really fun place. And actually, I've played there before, and it's almost like a bowling league, except they've got axe throwing leagues there. I never knew that, but it's a fun place. Yeah,
so that's a big thing now. I don't know why and how, but I've seen a lot of people into that particular thing. Myself, I couldn't find the right end of an axe if I tried, but
I'd throw my back out if I tried to throw an axe. But
how about
it's fun play.
How about some links to your material? If you're on Instagram, Facebook, the whole routine, what have you got?
Instagram, my link is Jim Blaney 615. On Spotify, I am just Jim Blaney. I do have an artist profile there with life lessons and the new song and more to be added. Facebook is Jim Blaney. You can friend me on there. And
we'll include all these.
I also do have my YouTube channel is at Jim Blaney 615. So I've got a lot of videos. I got a lot of live videos archived there, as well as some of the Facebook and Instagram stories that disappear after 24 hours. I've archived them all on my YouTube channel if anybody wants to go back and look at them.
Awesome, very good. We'll include those in the show notes down below there, and we'll include all the links to where you can find Jim's material and stuff. Any closing thoughts, my friend?
Not really. This is something that's a passion with me. I don't know where it's going to go. I'd like it to go somewhere, but if it doesn't, I'm really happy with how it's going right now. And I enjoy the recording and the playing live and just meeting people and meeting other musicians and people that like music.
Here's a last minute thought that I had. Now, you're an endodontist over there in Nashville. Do you happen to pipe your music in through the waiting room?
Well, I've only got 2 songs up now on
an endless loop type thing.
Yeah, I think people might get a little irritated with that. We play the local radio stations here, so I'll probably just keep it to that.
Okay, all right. Final song we're going to feature is called "Skeleton from the Closet." It just came out. Can you tell us a little bit about that one, Jim?
Yeah, it's actually a double single. It's got an electric version and an acoustic version. The electric version is actually the version that I heard in my head when I wrote it. The electric version has Mike Miley from the group Rival Sons on drums. Mike is a great drummer. He's in the Bonham tradition of drumming. The acoustic version is just me and an acoustic guitar, and that's the version that most people that have heard me play this around Nashville have heard for the last 3.5 years or so.
All right, very good. We're going to actually feature the electric version here coming up as we close the show. Once again, Jim Blaney, make sure you check out the show notes for how to contact him and maybe book him. Well, it might be an idea. Book him for a party.
That'd be great.
10% to the house, right, Jim?
Sure.
Thanks for being a guest on the Someone You Should Know podcast, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
this morning, paranoia creeping in, 'cause I had a dream about a face I'd seen and a place that I had been. I could not recall if I'd done them wrong or right, or if they were a close friend or some stranger in the night. Just a skeleton from the closet, come to say hello. Just a skeleton from the closet, come to steal the show. Every day I walk the crowded streets around this town, and everybody's staring straight ahead or at the ground. Never give a nod, never look me in the eye, keeping undercover so they don't get recognized by a skeleton from the closet, come to say hello. Just a skeleton from the closet, come to steal the show. Into this world with the same blank page, write the stories of our lives each and every day, paint a pretty picture on the cover that's outside, and keep that cover closed because we've all got stuff to hide. Like a skeleton from the closet, come to say hello. Just a skeleton from the closet, come to steal the show.
Hi, this is Rick Anthony, thanking you again for listening to this episode of Someone You Should Know. Now, if you're an aspiring musician or an established musician that's looking for a little exposure, I invite you to drop us a line at someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. That's someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. Also, I invite you to tell a friend about the Someone You Should Know podcast. I thank you for tuning in this time, and I invite you to check us out next time on the Someone You Should Know podcast, because you never know who's going to show up. Until next time, remember, God loves you, and so do I.